Bismillah tawakkalna Allah. Today we have a special guest and another episode of Future Career Podcast. We have brother Salman Ali. He's a senior vice president for Southern Division Manager and a company called Guidance Residential. He's been in the industry for almost 20 years in multiple finance roles. And today we're very happy and excited to learn about his journey. Brother Salman, welcome on board and happy to learn more about you. Would you give a quick intro about Brother Salman?
Absolutely. Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited about this podcast, this video, because, this is a subject that I think a lot of people can benefit from, whether it's people getting into a new career at a young full age, or even those that at a later stage in life, they feel like, they need a career change. So I think it might be beneficial. A little bit about myself, as Ahmed had introduced, my name is Salman Ali. I'm a senior vice president, division manager at a institution called Guidance Residential. It's the #1 provider of Islamic home financing in the United States. I've been with the organization for 18 years, which in today's day, a lot of people are surprised that I've been with an organization for this long because it's a little old school now. People switch jobs, but I've stuck around for this amount of years, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I'm excited to kind of just go into this and share how I got here and help others grow and develop in their career journeys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's start from, the beginnings, again, your first job or, you've been in the US for some time now. So tell us about your first job and the beginnings and the challenges, and how did you overcome those challenges, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So two jobs come to mind that really transformed, I would say, my career path. And my career path is really related to the customer journey, working with customers, customer relationships, sales, right? Because I'm essentially a sales manager in my role in the field of Islamic financing, Islamic home financing, and where this journey really started. And some of you folks may be surprised to hear this, was nearly 40 years ago when I was a paper boy for the Washington Post. And I started this journey at a very, very young age. And it's literally how you would imagine a paper boy on a bike at a very young age. I think I was around 10 years old when I started that position. And I kept that position, believe it or not, for subhanAllah, nearly 12 to 13 years. Even when I started working at
Wow.
Guidance Residential,
Wow.
I was still a paper boy. And how did it transform my life? One, it was a very humble experience, right? Being a paper boy. So it grounds you, right? So even right now, when I'm a senior vice president of a very large billion-dollar organization, I know my beginnings. And I think that's always important for anyone to keep in mind, right? You don't want to let it get to your head
Right.
because you have to make sure you can connect with everyday folks, right? And
Yeah.
that's important. So that was a big thing. The other thing is discipline. It taught me discipline. How did a paper boy teach me discipline? It was because the hours, imagine at a very young age, a 10-year-old boy, I had to get up at 2 a.m. in the morning, 7 days a week. And I got done around 6 a.m.
Oh my
So
God.
4 hours when everybody in the world is sleeping. I'm up delivering newspapers, and there's no days off, by the way. When you're a paper boy, I remember we had Hurricane Irene in the DC area, we had tornadoes, whatever else. You don't get a day off. So that's the discipline that I learned. Other thing I learned is customer service. Customer service because we had folks at the time that couldn't pick up their newspapers. I used to throw it from my bike and people couldn't get to their senior citizens. They couldn't walk on their lawns to go get it. And they had requested, can you get off of your bike and put it on our door? Right? Which it was, when you're in emotion and the wheels are spinning, you don't want to stop the wheels from spinning, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that hard stop taught me that no, but it's important. I have to. Why? It's the customer's request, right? So stopping, going, delivering the newspaper at their door. Not when it rains, you have to double bag the newspaper, put it in 2 bags so it doesn't get wet. And you're in
Mhm.
the rain in the bike throwing newspapers, right? In the snow. So that taught me a lot of discipline that I took forward all throughout my journey, to be honest.
Awesome. This is definitely a lot of wisdom and again, lots of inspiration too, being, proud to be a paper boy, that's definitely something that, I wish the new generation also, think about, because I'm not sure if this job still exists today. Do you know, or you don't know?
You know, they exist. I have a paper boy. Well, a paper man. Now they come in cars, right? So I get I'm a little old school, so I do enjoy reading a book, hardcover.
Yeah,
I enjoy reading the newspaper, hard copy. So they're still paper boys, still paper. It's a tough job, but it
100%.
teaches you a lot. And there's a lot of baraka in it too, though.
100%. Again, definitely 2 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's the time where risk is being distributed. So that's
Indeed,
definitely so baraka. Thank you
indeed.
so much.
Yeah.
You said two jobs. This was the first one. I think you want to mention the second one?
Yeah. So the second one is somewhat related. So one thing that I always felt deep inside of me, because whatever you do in your life in terms of your career, you have to have some sort of a passion for it.
Yeah.
And a passion that I always had for something was entrepreneurship, selling. And that also started at a very young age. So when I was a paper boy, every now and then I would have an extra newspaper, almost on a daily basis. And what did I do with the extra newspaper? I went to the comic section. I used to read the newspaper. One, it just taught me a lot in general, right? I could hold a conversation with adults because I knew exactly what was happening in the world, right? And the other thing was I used to read the comic section. Now, when I started reading the comic section, it was funny, it was entertaining. And I was 10, 12 years old. And I thought to myself, how can I make more money? I have this newspaper, I have this comic book. It's essentially free for me, right? Because it's extra, it's something that will go in the trash. So I started cutting the comics and I started selling them to the kids in the neighborhood. So I promoted it. I said, hey, I got comic books or comics. They're not books. Books are expensive. They used to be, I think, a quarter or 75 cents back in the 80s.
Mm.
But I said, this over here is only 5 cents, right? It's a nickel. Everybody has a nickel. So I started selling newspaper clippings of the comic section. We had Spider-Man, we had other characters, Big Nate or Small Nate, I can't remember, right? But different characters, and everybody had their own. Somebody liked Spider-Man, somebody liked something else. So I started making money through that avenue as well.
Oh, that's cool. They definitely have that entrepreneurial mindset from the beginning, so that's
Absolutely.
definitely interesting. Uh, okay, awesome. So I think, this phase maybe, led to the next phase. So would you mind maybe telling us how did you move to the next phase, and again, maybe a little bit of your education and your um, journey in that manner?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great transition. And before I get to college life, because I think that played a big role, I want to talk a little bit about high school, because sometimes high school or even middle school is underrated in terms of sometimes the youth and maybe even the parents think that it's not important enough, that the focus is all college. But a
Mm.
lot of what you do in terms of planting the seeds for where you want to be in college and what you want to do in college are planted in middle school, high school. So one thing that comes to my mind that played a big role in my journey was that in high school, there's electives. And now we're in the 90s, right? The early 90s. And IT was a big thing. It was a new thing. It was a lot of youth were getting into IT. But since it was so new for me and I didn't have that much exposure to it, because, and just to kind of put this into perspective, we took a field trip to another school that had internet where we were able to chat with people in Australia, and that was a big deal, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So so internet, I mean, when IT was coming out, it was something that was beyond me at the time because I didn't have enough exposure. But I knew, as we talked about earlier, I knew I loved business. I knew I loved customer service, engaging with people. So an elective that I found to be very interesting, and I got a lot of interesting feedbacks about, a lot of people discouraged it, was hotel management, the hospitality industry. So I said, hotel management is interesting, right? Because it can teach you how to own a business, because that elective teaches you everything from A to Z, every role in the company. So it was something that I was able to convince my parents. It's not an elective that, even when I think about my son bringing it up to me today, I may have to think about it a little bit, right? But of course, if it aligns with what he's wanting to do, I'll give him the green light. So I got that green light, and it was phenomenal. And I actually took it for 2 years. And I had to travel to a different school through a bus, and it took over about 3 or 4 electives. So I had no time for anything to learn anything else. And the good thing is, this course that we had was in cooperation with the Marriott. So I'm learning from the best of the best organizations, right? In
Yeah.
terms of hospitality. So we spent half of the year in a classroom in a different school learning about hospitality, hotel management, book-wise. And then the remainder of the year, we actually went to Marriott every day. The school bus took us from school to the Marriott, and we learned every role from the busboy to the front desk person to people in the background you don't even know exist in the hotel, to the banquet, to reservations. At that time, there weren't internet reservations. They had a department inside, people picking up the phones. Yeah. Reservations. There's a guy inside that folds, all he does for his 8 to 10 hours a day, he folds napkins. And that's all he does. Because as you can imagine, there are all these events, there's weddings, meetings, there's different types. So I learned, and I still know, how to wrap napkins in different ways, make flowers, make this and make that for different occasions, how to serve, what's the right way to put plates and tables and all that stuff. When you finish a meal, how should you put your fork and your knife? How to treat customers, more importantly, right? Dealing with customer service. So security. And the general manager in the beginning of this course, he said, I'm going to be watching all of you guys. And I'm going to tell you at the end of the year who I think has the potential to be the general manager of Marriott. And Alhamdulillah, he chose me for that. I got
Oh,
the honor. Yeah. So that helped me not only with the confidence, but gave me that real life exposure of dealing with customers and, in all different aspects. Housekeeping. I didn't talk about housekeeping. I did housekeeping. So I learned it all. And again, just being humble to know it all. Because when you eventually get to a leadership position, you got to know what everybody is going through, and you got to know the different departments.
yes. Awesome. This is definitely lots of wisdom, and I'm very excited to hear from you about that journey. And it seems like you're an outgoing person. You like to explore new ideas and new opportunities. And again, this could be a little bit difficult to some people. Some people are outgoing. Some people are really little more conservative. They're more shy, introvert more than anything. So, but again, this definitely shaped, your next steps. So do you mind, moving us to the next step, and again, tell us a little bit more about the challenges of getting your career plan clear for you. And again, it's all about discovery. I'm sure you've had to do some try and error somewhere, learn about yourself, learn about your passion. But tell us, how can people get more organized in their career? Because this is an area that some people are really struggling a lot, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And it's a challenge because even though now I have all this experience in hospitality for 2 years in every department that you can think of, I know how to run a hotel inside out, right? Then you go to college and after you graduate college, and it's like, what am I going to do with my life now? How do I transition? What does that actually mean in terms of a career,
Yeah.
right? So that takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of, getting even feedback from parents, from experts in the industry. And, you talked a little bit about being an introvert, right? You and even the folks watching and listening to us may be surprised to know I consider myself to be an introvert. I'm on a personal level, right? Like when we go to a party, I'm the one that doesn't talk that much, keep to my own, right? I'm not the outgoing person, but when it comes to business, because I have a passion for it, you will never know that because that's my passion, right? So that finding that right passion is important because then you can come out of maybe what you would consider to be an uncomfortable place for you on a personal basis, but then something very comfortable because you have a passion for it.
100%. That's definitely lots of wisdom. Again, passion that ignites, everything else, and help you with your journey.
Yeah. And then just, looking for opportunities. And, you mentioned something really important, Ahmed, which is trial and error. Don't be afraid. Don't think that whatever I find has to be the right thing right away. There is
Okay.
nothing wrong with learning. I mean, before I got to this career, I was a teller at the bank. And I always have a takeaway is wherever I go, whatever journey I do, I have to get something out of it, right? So it's not about the money necessarily. It's about the lessons that I learn, and they're building blocks and steps that take me to that next level, right? So
100%.
yeah, so we talked about, was a successful teller for 4 years, right? I went into a title company. Allah opened up an opportunity. So now you see the things are in motion, right? So I'm learning about finance. I was already business. I already knew how to run a business. So now the financial aspect for 4 years as a teller, because I'm learning, I'm picking up things. How does the banking system work, right? Then I went into a title company. There was an opportunity there, right? And now it's the stars are aligning, if you will, because that taught me about real estate now, right? So that gave me that exposure to real estate. For a very short period of time, I went into car sales because it seemed attractive, right? They said $60,000 potential. I said, "Oh, $60,000, let's do it." But then
Yeah.
I left very early because it just wasn't the mahal, it wasn't the environment that I was comfortable in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then an opportunity came, and it came. I wasn't even looking for it. In my case, it was my sister. She called me. She said, "Hey, you've been bouncing around a little bit for the last 12 months, ever since you left the bank. And I know you have a passion for a bank. I heard of an organization called Guidance Residential. They offer Islamic home financing. Why don't you apply? They're hiring." So I said, okay, that aligns with, the banking, the real estate that I learned from the title company, right? Because I was doing title searches.
Yeah.
And then in sales, you're your own business, right? So I interviewed for that position, and sales is about commission. It's not about salary or hourly. So
Yeah.
I had to have that mindset also and get out of that comfort zone. And a lot of folks that make that transition, that go from a salary or hourly to commission, in the beginning, it might be a difficult mindset change. But if you have that business and entrepreneurial mindset, you embrace it a little bit faster because you know the potential. You
Mhm.
know that you have an opportunity to build something. And that's kind of how I got into Guidance Residential and started building my sales career as an account executive. I was an account executive for 10 years in sales.
Wow, wow, cool. So I'm glad that you pointed out, again, that your sister introduced you to this job, and I'm sure she introduced you because she saw the passion in you, and you kept speaking about, what you like to do and what you don't like to do. And one thing that I want to stop on is, when did you decide to leave the car sales again? Because some folks sometimes they keep going in an area where they don't really like, and this definitely hurt them. So what could be triggering factors for you to say, yes, this is not me, I have to move on to something else? And that's not a bad thing. Moving on is something that sometimes is very good for the healthiness of the person and the career. And so can you speak a little bit about the decision that you made on saying that car sales is not me, and how do you want to shift to something else?
You bring up a really, really important point, Ahmed, and one that's really worth going over and reviewing because, like you said, you don't want to get stuck in a bad place and just continuing it, right? Feeling like
Yeah.
you have to. So, some of the things that I recognized very early, and I didn't stay for too long. I think total, including training, it was probably 2 months max. But you have to look at trigger points, right? Things that go against your passion and things that go against your values in the car industry, in the car sales industry. And I don't mean to label it as such because I don't believe in that, but at least the dealership that I was working on, they weren't very ethical. There was a lot of use of bad words. There were a lot of use of demeaning customers. So internally they demeaned customers, and then externally they would treat them like gold, which in my mind it doesn't work. We should be both ways together because how you are privately is actually who you are, right? So that meant a lot to me, and just the bad words and the tricks of saying it was something that I felt you can run an honest business without doing all of this stuff that they were doing in that environment. So that was my trigger, Ahmed. And I said, you know what, this is against my values. And Alhamdulillah, I pulled that bandage off really quick, as fast as I could. And I moved on. And Alhamdulillah, Allah never closes a door, an opportunity, unless He opens another one, and He opened a better one.
That's definitely a great wisdom here. So tell us about, again, guidance residential and your first few days and some of the challenges again that you see in that kind of business, and also how did you overcome those challenges, again, to reach a level of vice president. Again, this is definitely a huge title, lots of responsibility too, but definitely there is some wisdom behind this on how to really become in that leadership role.
Yeah. So I started, so the first 10 years I was a sales representative and account executive at Guidance Residential. And everything is a stepping stone towards the next level. And one thing that I learned along the way was, if I want to get to that next level, transition from sales to management, I need to be ready for it, right? If you're not ready for the train, you're going to miss the train, right?
100%.
So you have to have that same mindset in everything else that you do. If I'm not ready for the opportunities are, they're everywhere. They're happening right now,
Yeah,
right? And if
true.
we're not ready for them, we've already missed them. So Alhamdulillah, that mindset was within myself, myself. And what I did was, one of the first things that I did as a stepping stone to the next level was, how do I improve my communication skills and leadership skills? And one way that I did that was an institution called Toastmasters. And I encourage everyone, honestly speaking, everyone that I talk to, I try to motivate and inspire. And Toastmasters, you'd be surprised, Ahmed. You go to Toastmasters website, location, you plug in any zip code. They'll have like 80 locations in your backyard. And imagine every club probably has 50. So how many people are investing in their growth? So we need to catch up and invest in our growth.
100%. And I echo you 100% about Toastmasters. I'm personally a big fan of Toastmasters, and I've been, attending their sessions for some years, and I keep, referring to them, every time I, tend to speak to job seekers, specifically.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, so that was a big change for me, because that upped my communication skills, right? Because you see, the people you hang around with define who you are, right? So
Yeah,
this gives you exposures to executives, to different industry leaders, and there's different clubs that you can join with different skill sets, right? So you have to be particular about what do you want to grow in, right? There's engineer ones, there's different ones, right? So I had that opportunity and I did really well in Toastmasters. And I consider myself as a quick learner, especially things that I'm passionate about. So I learned a lot over there. I learned about leadership. And the other thing is, you have to also, there's the knowledge based, but then there's your external base too. You have to look the part, right? If I go to my mechanic and he looks like a doctor, I'm not leaving my car there, right? So you have to look the part. So then I started to also dress like the next position up, right? Because you got to be ready for that train, right? Imagine if the CEO is walking by and he's looking around and he needs to fulfill a role. Who's he going to look at? He's going to say, this person already looks like the role. Let me investigate him a little bit more. Let me look into him a little bit more. Maybe
yeah,
he also has the skill sets. And then when you're taking Toastmasters, you're refining your communication and management and leadership skills. You're setting yourself up for success.
100%. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So, it seems again you've sharpened your skills a lot through the years, and did lots of research about your gaps and also how to reach that next level. So what would you advise folks specifically who are shy and want to go into sales? Again, it's definitely speaking and communication is a very key area for sales folks to speak the right words, and again, being ethical and transparent is something that is not, unfortunately, all sales abide to. So what would you recommend again for those folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So to get into sales in particular, the three key things that I look at whenever I scout for an individual or when I interview an individual for a role in our organization is, they have to be smart, honest, and hungry, right? So we talked a little bit about the honesty part, right? You have to be honest, right? Sales is not about the stereotypical, car salesman that sometimes people think about when you think about a sales salesmen or saleswomen, but it's somebody that's, honest, and they tell their customers what benefits them and tries to find them a solution. And if it benefits them, alhamdulillah. If it doesn't, Allahu Akbar, then you move on to the next. There's so much opportunity, right?
Yes.
To help people. Then we talked about smartness. You have to be, when I say smart, I don't mean a rocket scientist. I'm not a rocket scientist, right? But like smart in the sense that you should be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? And determine, how would I want to be best treated? What would be the best process and the most seamless process to get from A to Z, from looking at a car to, buying a car, right? And we've all had that experience, right? But it's about redefining it, right? Because when you're a salesman or woman, you're in that role of change. It's your franchise, if you will, right? You
Yeah.
can take wherever you want to take it. So it's thinking in that mindset. And the last is hunger. You got to be hungry, right? Because that's salesman, right? This is where you're not looking at hourly, you're not looking at salary, because when all that stuff to a salesman is a ceiling, and I don't like ceilings. I
Yes.
like the sky is the limit, right? And that's commission. So you got to have that business mindset, right? People who want to get into a business, and the benefit, like for example, with Guidance Residential, you join, and there's little investment, right? Before I got into Guidance, I was thinking about buying a franchise. You got to pay a franchise, fee to buy it, royalties. You got to spend your own marketing. Over here, you get so much support. It was a no-brainer. I don't have to pay anything. They're paying, I'm getting a commission, no royalty. I don't have to buy for marketing materials. Why not? And I treated it like a business, and it paid me like a business. And I saw that potential, so I just kept growing my game, right? Making myself better, learning more about sales, learning more about real estate, because I knew about hospitality. I knew a little bit about real estate, but then you got to up your game too. You got to continuously learn, and read about what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening in 10 years, 5 years, and just stay up to speed, because you're the professional that a lot of people rely on for this information.
So again, you're very passionate, and you're very good in sales. I'm almost sold in whatever you're doing, and I feel like I want to start the same career as yours. But thank you again so much for the wisdom that you just shared. So I think we've covered a lot in your journey, and I wanna be respectful of the time as well. So one thing that I always try to close with is, again, the recipe of success. So what made Salman Ali, successful across the years in that journey? If you want to maybe summarize those into, 1 to 3 points, that folks can try to, learn from your wisdom, sir.
Yeah, I would love to know. I appreciate that. In terms of a recipe for success for myself was, one, finding a passion. You got to know what you're interested in, whatever it is. And the thing is, we need good folks in every category, right? We need good doctors, we need good engineers, but we need good movie producers. We need good, construction folks. We need good sales professionals. We need good interviewers like yourself, mashallah, Ahmed, right? We need good, all of that, because it's, especially within our community, it's a circular economy. We got to cover all aspects, banking and everything, politics. Find there's a skill that Allah has given to all of us. And it's a matter for us to just recognize what it is. It's there, right?
Yes.
And just because you failed in one thing, it's actually a blessing, because Allah is taking you away from what's not your passion and not your skill set, so you can focus on where you could benefit society as a whole. So one, I would say, Ahmed, it's recipe for success, finding that passion. You got to know what you love, right?
Love it.
And then the next thing is taking steps to get there. You got to have some sort of a plan, right? And I take inspiration from Allah. What was the first thing Allah created? The pen, al-qalam. And
Yes.
he said, write everything down. SubhanAllah, can you imagine? Allah doesn't need a business plan, but he wrote it all down, right? So maybe for one, this is me speaking, I don't know, maybe to show us how it's done, right? So we learn from that. So write it down, write things down. I'm a person that lives with a notebook, right? I always have a notebook. So write things down, learn, make a plan, and there you go. And you continues to learn and grow when you write things down and have a plan, right? And then the third thing is you got to be ready to execute. Too many people sometimes dive into the data and they overanalyze things, but they never execute. So the third recipe for success is you got to make the jump, right? It's okay if you might fail, you may fall down. It's okay. You get back up and fly again, right? But you got to execute. And even in sales, like we say, you got to execute. You got to ask for the sale, right? So that would be my recipe that I would suggest to anyone getting into any type of a profession and career, is to focus on those three things.
That's really, really lots of wisdom there. And I love your 3 points. Definitely lots of, passion and wisdom about this to anyone. Again, not necessarily in the same career as yours, but, I think this is a general help for anyone. I'm very happy to have this call with you today. And I'm glad, we've gone through the journey. And I know that we have, a call that we'll set up in December, about first home owners, how to prepare for first home owners. Do you want to maybe give a little bit, let's say, a teaser about that session, in this video, and then we'll speak up, we'll announce the date later on?
I would love to. Thank you for that reminder. And yeah, so we're very excited. We're actually going to be getting together again, Ahmed and myself, and we're going to be hosting a program. I think we're calling it Homeownership 101. And with Homeownership 101, it's designed to talk about how to get into homeownership. A lot of people, when they think about homeownership, and I put myself in that position a long time ago before I got into this, it seems like a very complicated process. It seems like something that's hard to achieve, right? And the beautiful thing is that, alhamdulillah, it's actually not, right? So one of the purposes of that session or that workshop that we're going to do is we're going to break it down, right? So if you want to get into home ownership, you want to buy a home, what are the steps, right? We're going to talk about building credit. We'll talk about money in the bank. That's important, right? You can't have cash under the mattress, right? And then once you have that, what happens next? So we'll talk about a pre-approval process. We'll talk about financing. We can even go into a little bit in terms of riba-free financing, right? Because that's important to a lot of folks. So we'll cover all those basics and hopefully put you in a position where you feel more comfortable about taking that first step towards home ownership, and hopefully learn a lot along the way.
Awesome. Very excited about this next session too, and looking forward to it. And definitely will announce the date very soon. Again, thank you so much, brother Salman. This has been, inspiring and motivational journey. And, thank you so much for your time, effort, and wisdom today. And looking forward to, catch up again in the future. If you want to have any final words before we end up today, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity and for hosting such a great program that helps our community grow and learn from different experts. I had an opportunity to watch some videos prior to joining this one, and I have to say I'm very proud of all the good things that you're doing, and I truly hope it benefits the community that's watching, and you're able to find your passion and grow in it. Thank you, Ahmed, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.